Hi, beautiful people of this universe.
Hi.
Today we are exploring one of Chicago's most beautiful and fascinating experiences, the Shoreline Sightseeing Architecture River Tour. Join me as we cruise along the Chicago River, take in the breathtaking skyline, and discover the incredible architecture and rich history that make this city so iconic. Let's begin this amazing adventure together.
Say in the year 1800, this was still mostly a swamp when he left. It's a relatively young city. We're less than 200 years old. There are cities in the world that are thousands of years old. We're even younger than that, really, if you consider how much of our city was destroyed during the Great Chicago Fire. I'll tell you that story and a few other pivotal Chicago history stories when we are down on the south branch of the Chicago River. But as I am a teacher on this boat, I'm going to be telling you facts and stories about Chicago, but this is subjective. This is art. It's up to you which buildings you connect with. I'm not going to try to force you to think a certain building is beautiful, but I would love to give you the tools to maybe better understand, categorize, and appreciate why each building is beautiful in its own way. So for right now, before we really get into the architecture, I want to talk about three different types of architectural beauty. Each building can fall into one of these. So we have ornamental beauty, functional beauty, and technological beauty. Ornamental, functional, technological. So ornamental beauty is probably the easiest one to understand. If you look at a building and you think the architect had aesthetics in mind, they made a beautiful building beautiful for no other reason than they wanted it to be beautiful. Beauty for the sake of beauty. That's ornamental beauty. Functional beauty is kind of a little harder to pin down exactly what it means. We have a lot of box buildings here in Chicago. They're not super flashy. They're not going to win any beauty pageants, but there is a logic behind their design. They are a box shape because they have to serve a purpose. They have to serve a function. Functionally beautiful on the inside. And now finally, technologically beautiful. How does the building take us into the future of architecture? We have a lot of examples of flashy, new, high-tech architecture here in Chicago. We arguably had the first high-tech skyscraper in the world because we had the first skyscraper. The first skyscraper made its debut here in Chicago in 1885. It was the Home Insurance Building by William LeBaron Jenney, and it was deemed a skyscraper because of its load-bearing frame and its unprecedented height at the time. 10 stories. No one had seen anything quite as tall as this building. It seemed to have scraped the sky. We have a few other taller buildings that are 10 stories here in Chicago. We're going to see a few of them on this tour. Lake Michigan out on our left as far as the eye can see. No salt, no sharks. This is going to be a great photo opportunity. Once we pass under this bridge, you're going to see downtown Chicago unfold in front of you, and then we're going to get right into the architecture. Welcome to downtown Chicago. Are you guys ready to get into some buildings? All right. We're going to start over on our left. These three curving blue glass towers. You can't miss them. This is the third tallest building in Chicago. It is the St. Regis. Third tallest, 1,198 feet tall, 365 meters tall. But these three curving blue glass towers are the tallest building in the world designed by a woman. Jeannie Gang of Studio Gang Architects. Yes, Woo is right. She is a genius. She designed Maggie Daley Park in downtown Chicago. She won a MacArthur Genius Award grant. Very lucky to have her here in Chicago. But about her building, take a look up towards that tallest tower. And it looks like they forgot to put windows on some of those floors up there. That is not a mistake. No. That is our first of 3 ways to manage the sway of a tall building. All tall buildings sway. That's good. That's natural. We just don't want them to sway too much because people will get seasick up there. So to manage the sway, this is the only building in Chicago with a blow-through floor. And it does just that. It allows the air to blow through those floors. Instead of putting all that pressure on the entire side of the building, it just allows the building to sway a little bit more naturally. This building looks like it curves. It actually doesn't curve at all. Each floor is 5 inches wider than the next. And then it just undulates every 12 stories all the way up to the top, giving it that curving facade look. It's a mixed-use hotel and residential structure, home to some of the most expensive apartments in all of Chicago. Floors 71 and 72, that is the top of the second tower. They were combined and sold as one giant penthouse apartment in 2022 for $20 million. So if I do really well in gratuity, I'll buy my own $20 million apartment. And then I'll invite you all over for a fun post-boat tour get-together, of course. And then I'll keep it. It's only fair. Now, over on our left, we have this glass reflective triangular building, Swiss Hotel. But behind that building, there's a taller building with some white curving balconies that kind of look like a wave of water cascading down the side of the fittingly titled Aqua Tower from 2009 by Jeannie Gang. Again, this is the second tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. She has 1 and 2. Now, each balcony is entirely geometrically unique. That does 2 things. It allows, if you want to, you can walk out onto your balconies, wave hello to your neighbors below you, wave hello to your neighbors above you. And it also cuts the wind, allowing the balconies to be more comfortable in temperature into the year. Ahead of us, on the right, we have this white building with the clock tower up on the top. This is the Wrigley Building. It's from the early 1920s. Now, in the early 1920s in Chicago, we were going through the City Beautiful movement. We were trying to beautify this city and do it quickly. So we had to steal architectural styles from other places that had had years to develop their architecture. So this clock tower up at the top of the Wrigley Building is modeled after La Giralda's Tower from Sevilla's Cathedral in Spain. It's a Spanish revivalist building. Revivalist styles harken back to ancient cultures and history to honor them. Now it is the Wrigley Building, so originally it was the headquarters for the Wrigley Candy Company. That is the same Wrigley Candy Company that bought a minority stake in the Chicago Cubs in 1916. And that is the same Chicago Cubs baseball team who named their ballpark Wrigley Field in 1926, 100 years ago. Now, closer to us, straight ahead, we have this glass reflective skyscraper with a spire up on the top. It's from 2009. Second tallest building in Chicago, the Trump International Hotel and Tower, by world-famous architect Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith, Chicago native, started his career here. He's gone on to design the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. You can stack that building on top of itself, including the spire, and it's still not as tall as the Burj Khalifa. The Burj Khalifa is massive. Now, this building is an example of contextualism, meaning it is in conversation with its context or location. I'll show you what I'm talking about. As we're passing under this bridge, you'll see some of the lower floors behind those pillars. They're curving glass, kind of like a wave of water, mimicking the water. Above that, the reflective surface, reflecting everything around it. And then these 3 patio setbacks of the building. Each setback matches the height of a nearby iconic structure. So the first one on our right matches the height of the Wrigley Building. The second one on our left matches the height of this skinny rocket ship looking tower on our left, Mother Tower. And that tallest setback matches the height of the black box building behind this tower. So these patio setbacks are basically Adrian Smith's way of saying he could not have put this building in this spot as successfully without everything else that was already around it. It's complementing its location, allowing your eyes to glide a little easier around Chicago. Got the river walk over to our left. If you got some time free here in Chicago, take a walk up and down the river walk. It's free. It's from 2016. plenty of places to grab a bite to eat, grab a drink. Murals there as well, art. Over on our right, we have this black box building, AMA Plaza from 1973. It is by another world-famous architect, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Now, he's originally from Germany. He moved here to Chicago. He has designed over 50 buildings here in Chicago. And most of them look like that building. He's known as the father of modernism. Modernism is about clean lines, functionality, and minimalism. Or boxes. The box man, that's what he does. He makes boxes. We've got some other box buildings. You may recognize this box building though from The Dark Knight. This is Wayne Tower. After that, the corn cobs, the urban concrete corn cob structures living in the city from 1967 over on our right. Now, this is by a student of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, Bertrand Goldberg. That was not the case in Chicago in the 1960s. People were fleeing our central business district called the Loop because of the shape of our public transit. The resources of an entire neighborhood in each corn cob. So at the bottom, that is parking. As you can see, there's not much of a railing, so it's not self-parking that allows you to actually careen your car off the side into the Chicago River. But above that, originally though, there was a laundromat, dry cleaners, a gym, a restaurant, an ice skating rink, a movie theater, a bowling alley, anything you want. It was an introvert's heaven. You could just stay in your pajamas all day, live in your corn cob, forever. You never had to leave. And it was successful in bringing people back to the Loop. Now, two cornerstones. Coming up on our right, this low-lying red brick building with a clock tower. It's the Reed Murdoch building. It's from 1914. It's an example of Prairie-style architecture. Prairie style is all about long horizontal lines, solid construction, and natural integration into the local landscape. The most famous interpretation of Prairie style is by Frank Lloyd Wright. We don't have any Frank Lloyd Wright on the Chicago River, but if you take a quick Green Line train down to Oak Park, you can visit his home and studio there. This building is asymmetrical. Bare 6 window bays on the side of push bus, 5 on the side of urban bus. It used to be symmetrical, but in the 1930s, we wanted to expand LaSalle Street up there. So to do that, we bulldozed the last window bay off this building. And just rebuilt it to look almost symmetrical. This building was also an emergency hospital 1 year after it was built, because across the street over on our left is the site of the deadliest maritime disaster in Great Lakes history, the SS Eastland sinking. July 24th, 1915, 2,500 members and family members of the Western Electric Company boarding the SS Eastland in that spot. But that's 3 years after the Titanic sinking, so you gotta have more lifeboats on a boat. That made the SS Eastland super top heavy, so it tipped over on its side while people were boarding, trapping 800 people below. One of the people tipping the Northeast, whose body was not found, was 20-year-old George Hallis. His friends go to his house to pay their respects, and they're shocked and overjoyed when George Hallis answers the door. He said, "I thought I was going to be late, so I didn't bother showing up." Great for him. Pretty good for Chicago, though, because he would go on to be the founder and owner of the Chicago Bears. And hopefully they stay, the Chicago Bears. Over on our right, this concrete building, this giant limestone building over on our right. This is Merchandise Mart from 1930. It was originally the wholesale warehouse for the Marshall Field's department store. This is Art Deco architecture. If you want to find more Art Deco, look for limestone, vertical racing stripes, and these deep inset windows. Art Deco wants to show off the values of the Jazz Age, the Roaring 20s, which the values back then were, we can spend as much money as we can, and nothing will ever go wrong. This was the largest building in the world back then, when it was, in terms of volume. 4.2 million square feet of space inside. At different points in its history, it has had its own public transit stop, its own fire station, and until 2000, always inside that building, you can get lost. I speak from experience. This is Wolf Point. This is where the three branches of the Chicago River converge. We've been on the main branch, and now we are at the building that kind of looks like a hot pocket. This is River Point from 2017 by Picard Chilton. Now, he had a problem though, because below his building there are trains, Amtrak and Metro trains running right below that building. Most buildings have structural support columns going straight down. You can't do that when there are trains underneath your building. So he had to innovate. That is what that parabolic arch design, the building up from above ground. It's the load bearing from above ground. It's also the rain gutter for the entire facade of the building. Below that, there's that red swirling sculpture by Santiago Calatrava, Spanish architect, world famous. He's kind of controversial because he's into the North Branch. Ahead of us, we have this rectangular pink brick building, Fulton House. This is the oldest building we will see on our tour. It's from 1898. It did not look like this at all back in 1898 because it didn't have any windows. Who wants to live in a building with no windows? Nobody, because nobody actually lived there. Originally, it was a cold storage warehouse for raw meats. Chicago has a rich meat packing history, and through much of our history, we had so much raw meat, we didn't know what to do with it. We had to make giant building-sized refrigerators like this one, where we would just stack raw animal carcasses stories and stories and stories and stories high. Until the 1970s, architect Harry Weiss decides he wants to convert this giant fridge into 106 livable condominiums. To do this, to turn a fridge into a place where you can live, he had to first thaw the building out for 6 months. And then he had to haul 500 semi-truckloads of cork and horsehair out of the building's walls. Create the counterweight every time the bridge is painted. The weight of the paint throws off the counterweight. Now ahead of us, we got this reflective light blue glass skyscraper. And it kind of looks like a sharpened pencil stuck into the ground. It's got that Y base straight ahead of us. This is 150.
Thank you, Chicago, for wonderful memories, amazing experiences, and warm hospitality.